smallest mini PC. So at this point I just want to plug it in, see what's going on, what can we do with it, and how far can we push it when it comes to emulation itself. However, I love Batocera because this is such an easy program to actually install. Later on I will explain how and what, but first let's take a close look at what can this thing do and what are they getting when it comes to the specifications. But let's do a quick look, what are we actually able to do with this. So when it comes to some 8-bit or 16-bit system or handhelds, we're not going to be having a lot of problems there. We can run them on those like really cheap boxes, but N64 and also PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable, those systems can be interesting to see how far we can push the device itself. But yeah, you're just going to be having a lot of fun with old school games like MS-DOS and having of course some 8-bit, 16-bit stuff. So not all of the platforms are enabled, so that's one of the things we can do in a later video. But pressing start will give us the main menu itself. The main menu, here we can actually mess around with the system. If you have no knowledge about it, you don't really need to do it. Out of the box, it can do a lot of great things, but of course we can just enable or disable controllers. We can add new controllers. In this case, with multiple controllers attached to the device now, I'm using actually now the Xbox 360 pad, but I also can force it to use a PlayStation 3 controller also enabled to the device itself, or just leave it at default. I love about Batocera, we can change out all kinds of things if you want to mess and tinker with it. Of course, what we're going to be doing is going into the information, because the system settings, in here we're going to be finding more information about the device itself. So the version. So this is the 500GB storage. We're having also this thing is called the Mac Mini 7.1. So moving on, we're having over here the Intel Core i5, the 4000 series or the 4260U, running on 1.40 GHz. But when it comes to the old school MS-DOS games, what I love about it, you can just power it on and we can just boot up, no problem. It automatically recognizes the controller, so we don't need to do any tinkering whatsoever. And of course, MS-DOS games, you can just play these things on some basic like $30 game boxes nowadays. So that's one of the unfortunate things is if you're going to be getting something that is ready to go. There's some of the things I just randomly picked up. And yeah, with these things, it is possible that some of the games are unplayable. Let's see if the next game of the MS-DOS series also going to be having the same problem. Nope, just like a certain game that had the problems. So with The Simpsons, let's see what's going on. I must say that this is one of the games I personally never actually played. They had like back in the day a Bart Simpson game that I really didn't like situation. But beside that, like again, emulation on some Game Boy is not going to be a problem. So unfortunately there is no Game Boy Advance, but it's the same story. But you don't need a PC like this for actually playing these games. You can just play them nowadays on like a very, very cheap game box. I think I've seen them going around for, let's say, 30 bucks. And you have something okay or decent enough to just play this. But still, in this video I just wanted to showcase a little bit of the 16-bit era. So we don't have any Sega stuff on here, so that's something we can check out later on, but there we're not going to be having any problems when it comes to the Genesis, CD, 32X or something else. Within 64 we can do some really cool things. So for example, I don't find it any problem to run it on native resolution, but what we can do is going into the emulator, let's say section for per game or just like full range of every single, let's say N64 game, but if you're going to be holding the A button for some time. So in here we're finding all kinds of different emulators, and yeah, we can just mess around with it if you have any problems. So we can even do a little bit of upscaling if you want to, like over here having rendering resolution. So let's say we're going to be setting this to 2 times, but we can also set it to 1280 by 960. GoldenEye is absolutely a challenge to just play, but you know, it's kind of weird what's going on with the controller. Okay, that seems to be working fine, but you know, I just wanted to mess around to see what's going on. And you can see even upscaled, this looks so much better. Otherwise in the native resolution, you're just going to be having this blurry situation where some emulators, what I understand of, they're using the deblur function, meaning that you don't have the width blurring effect in general, which you have with the original systems. But yeah, if you're going to be looking at this, it runs absolutely great. And with such a simple, let's say, older chipset, you can still play the N64 GoldenEye game, but then also have the option to do a little bit of upscaling. I think the upscaling is absolutely a lot of cool things we can do with a lot of these mini PCs. We have all kinds of different boxes that we can now play PlayStation 1. Like those cheaper things for like 30 bucks, 40 bucks can actually play it. However, if you're going to be holding the A button in the emulator section or the game itself, advanced game options. And what we can actually do is kind of cool. So We can of course choose different kind of emulators, but and again here we can do rendering resolution. But if you're going to be looking at the character itself, you can see there's a little bit of a glitching going on, but the overall, let's say, resolution upscaling situation with the PlayStation 1 is absolutely one of the cool benefits of actually using a Batocera and mini PC. And if you're going to be having more power of the GPU, CPU-GPU combination, we can even do some crazy thing and going higher resolutions, messing with, let's say, the system itself. So now having DuckStation set up, and one of the things I actually wanted to change out to is like the skipping the intro. I love the nostalgia intro, but if you're going to be playing a couple of times, it's just very much easier actually just to skip them. Where I normally play this game on the PlayStation 2, if you're going to be doing a little bit of an upscaling, this game does look absolutely great. But still, don't get me wrong, I personally prefer to play this on the PlayStation 2. That brings us to the next subject, PlayStation 2. Let's see how that actually runs, but take consideration that I'm going to be not doing a lot of upscaling, because with the onboard GPU, yeah, I think it's not going to be an overall fun, crazy experience that we had with the PlayStation 1 over here. When it comes to PlayStation 2 emulation, it's going to be unfortunate and hit or miss. So the first start of the game, I absolutely had a lot of problems, and that was a little bit of a bummer, but a lot of stuttering going on. But throughout the game you can see that it seems to be running just fine, so that's absolutely great. But the only problem is that we're going to be not having any upscaling going on, because with that we're going to be needing way more power, particularly when it comes to the GPU. And one of the concessions that we're actually going to be needing to make when it comes to these, let's say, very interesting but older devices. But let's try another game, and with some minor hiccups, I didn't have a lot of problems actually. So native resolution PlayStation 2 is actually possible, but again, like I mentioned with Crash, it's going to be a hit or miss. Also noticed that the rumble function works absolutely great on the controller, so that's kind of cool, because that's one of the features. Somehow they always like mess it up. But you can actually sometimes hear and see the dips going on. It's going to be fun to revisit these old school games, because I think PlayStation 2 still looks really great. Comparison throughout this video already mentioned a couple of times of these cheaper game boxes, and those cheaper game boxes always struggle with PlayStation Portable. And we can actually play this without any problem on these mini PCs. So this is an older i5 model, but this runs as like a charm. But however, I'm actually playing this on native resolution. But also here we can do some upscaling, where this will absolutely make this game so much better looking. But now we're going to be playing this on 1080p resolution upscaled, and everything looks, let's say, more crisp and clear, not that pixelated like normally. And I think that is absolutely awesome. Of course, we will find some limitations here that we also did with PlayStation 2, with the simple reason of the GPU onboard power. That's one of the reasons why I sometimes would really love to have, like, say, a dedicated GPU to it when it has an NVIDIA, or having just an AMD Ryzen with a powerful, let's say, onboard GPU, because that gives like so much more potential when it comes to upscaling to even crazier, let's say, resolution like 10 times and stuff like that. And oh man, this looks so much better. So in this way we can just mess around with the emulator, going just to see how far we can push it. Also depending on how much power of the GPU is going to be used. So we're going to be putting in the frame counter, having like 16 frames, no problem whatsoever. Getting some I'm getting some God of War vibes over here. But this is one of the games you should absolutely check out. This is a kind of cool game. I think it's also released for the PlayStation 2. But with no enemies, you can see that it does hit almost 50. But I think it's like yeah, it's not like the best way to play. Like 6 times, let's go to 5 times. To see if this is going to be better. Still dipping to 42 sometimes. But again, it's a personal thing. If you want to have like full 60 frames, you can tweak per game, make the saves, and keep it as it is. But that's actually one of the optimizing ways. A lot of game boxes I've checked out in the many years, they didn't do that. With optimizing, you can just achieve so much cool things, and also tweak games that didn't run that great.
What I love about this mini PC, this Imac thing, is that we have like a zillion different ports on the end when it comes to USB. Super convenient if you want to play with 4-player configurations with certain kind of emulators. And I think that is going to be one of the key things I love about the Imac. And also, it looks pretty cool. Nowadays on AliExpress you can find these very weird 3D printed mini PCs, and yep, they are using old hardware as well, i3s and etc. But most of them are really underpowered, promising GameCube and PS2, but I can tell you that all of these are running really bad, and I think that the overall construction is also very disappointing. But when it comes to the overall performance, this is going to be the biggest disappointment of them all. But we also have like newer solution with the N100, where it's not like a super high-end power chip. We can actually have some way better performance there, but they are still using very old platter disk, so that's a little bit of a downside when it comes to that. But I also checked out all kinds of different models from Dell, Lenovo, HP, you name it, because the iMacs are maybe not available in your country. And even there we're going to be having all kinds of different i3, i5, i7, different generations. And I can tell you some of the performance will be the same. So I want just to point out that there are many other solutions out there that resulting in maybe the same or maybe better overall performance when it comes to emulation. And of course the size also depends what you can do with it when it comes to implementing an SSD or basically like a 3.5 inch of a hard drive.
But how are we going to be connecting it and how are we going to be using Batocera? So first of all, we do have different options when it comes to emulation. We can use the Windows part and just slap ourselves a Lunchbox, let's say, drive in it, and we can just play through there. However, what we're going to be doing is using the Batocera, because I'm just going to be honest, I'm a huge fan of it. The Linux is very stable and very nice way to play. We can put a built-in drive, for example, going to be flashing it into NVMe, depending on the size of course, or we can just plug it in externally. That's one of those many ways that we can play. So let's plug it in and let's go and see what we can do out of the box and what kind of i5 8th generation we're having over here. But if you have chosen or made your own Batocera drive, next thing you're going to be doing is getting a keyboard. It's to be changed, and then you can actually go into the Windows itself. So that's actually how it is. And next up we're going to be checking it out. But first let's chit chat about the controllers. What are the options there? But first thing first, we're going to be removing the keyboard because we're not going to be needing it for now. I just want to grab a couple of them that I just use myself, and for a good reason, because they are like super easy to use and set up. So one of the many brands we're having over here is, one of my favorite ones is the Beto brand. And so for example, if you want to get yourself into the arcade, you want to experience the, let's say, Neo Geo style, we can actually get this 8-Beto versus SNK Neo Geo wireless controller. This comes with Bluetooth capability and also a USB dongle, so you can plug it in and configure it fairly easy. The conclusion is that iMac is an absolutely amazing piece of hardware that we can just convert into something of an emulation machine, a high quality mini PC with some overall great performance for a low price tag. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you all for watching, and it will be great to see you in the next video.